So today I'm going to talk about the Bosnian Genocide. So the Bosnian Genocide, it happened during the early 1990s, so like 1992 to 1995. And it was when the Bosnian Serb forces attacked the Bosniaks, or like the Bosnian Muslims, and sometimes the Bosnian Croats, but it mostly targeted the Bosniaks. These groups were different mostly because of religion and history, not race. Like, they weren't divided by race, it was just their religion. Bosniaks were Muslim, and then the Serbs were Eastern Orthodox, and Croats were Catholic. But even though they lived in the same towns and spoke similar languages, political leaders used the differences with their religion to divide everybody and put people against each other. But the Serb leaders wanted power and land, and many of the Serb leaders believed in creating a greater Serbia. When they so they tried to spread fear by saying that the other religious groups were a threat, but they really weren't. They just were saying that so they could try to get more land. This made some Serbs feel justified into trying to control territory and push out anyone who wasn't Serbian. This is why the violence became so extreme, and it started all the mass killings and the forced removals and the destruction of all these homes and the religious buildings and everything. But it's pretty accurate to call what all happened ethnic cleansing, because the goal was to force non-Serbs out of a certain area, and so it was just ethnic cleansing because they thought one ethnicity was a big threat to another, so they tried to get rid of it altogether. But the massacre in Srebrenica, I don't know how to say it, but that was where more than 8,000 Bosniak men and boys were murdered in July of 1995, so it was legally recognized as a genocide. But so both terms applied to what was going on in Bosnia. It was ethnic cleansing and it was a genocide because I guess it just depends on what part of the conflict you're talking about. But the genocide lasted from 1992 to 1995. So during this time, about 100,000 people died, and more than 2 million people were forced from their homes. Many women were raped. People were tortured in detention camps, and entire communities were destroyed and just in ruins. These actions match several patterns from sociology, expulsion, segregation, and attacks on a group's culture. The violence also caused huge migration. Millions and millions of people fled to different countries and different places in Europe, different countries in Europe and stuff. And Germany actually took in the most refugees, but a lot of them also went to Sweden and Austria and Switzerland and Turkey. And a lot of people went to the United States and Canada, but a lot of families never got to return to their homes because they were either demolished or it was just so unsafe to go back. But international help came from groups like the United Nations was very big with helping. The UNHCR, the Red Cross, and Doctors Without Borders. So eventually NATO stepped in with airstrikes, and then it pressured the Serb forces to end the fighting and sign the Dayton Peace Accords. The most important thing that I learned was probably how fast everyday differences can be turned into excuses for violence when political leaders push fear and division. But I think the Bosnian genocide shows how dangerous nationalism can be and how badly things can go if the world reacts too slowly. I think it just helped show me that if anyone in power says something that will like turn a group against another group, it can happen so easily because people are so controlled by fear that they will listen to whatever a political leader says if they say that it's right. Thank you.